People in Kaiama started noticing something was wrong long before the gunshots, the fires, and the mass graves. Strange men were seen moving inside the thick bushes that surround villages in Kaiama Local Government Area of Kwara State. They were not farmers, they were not hunters, they carried weapons. They camped deep inside the forest. They watched the communities, and the people reported again and again. Now, at this point, this is where the story truly begins. Not on the day over 170 people were killed, but months before that day ever came. Residents of Kaiama say the warning signs were clear. Youths who regularly moved around the forest for farming and firewood began to notice unfamiliar armed men gathering close to their villages. The movement was unusual. The timing was suspicious. Fear slowly crept into the community. According to multiple survivors who later spoke, the youths did what the government and security agencies have always told Nigerians to do. See something, say something. They went to their traditional ruler. They reported to the local government authorities. They reached out to the state government. They raised alarm. They begged. They warned. We saw them months before the attack, one resident said, his voice heavy with grief. They were staying inside the forest, close to our villages. Our youths went to the traditional ruler many times. The message was simple. Armed strangers are camped near us. Please help us.
Now, let us look at this clearly. This was not a case of sudden violence or surprise infiltration. This was not an overnight attack. This was a slow burning danger that people on the ground could see with their own eyes. They didn't stop at the palace, another resident explained. They went to the local government council. They even informed the state government. Everybody knew. Everybody knew, but nobody acted. From this point, the tension in Kaiama only grew. Residents say that around July or August 2025, the movement inside the forest increased. The armed men became bolder. More of them were seen. At night, strange sounds echoed from the bushes. Fear settled into daily life. People slept lightly. Mothers worried about their children. Farmers avoided certain paths. Worshippers prayed harder. And still, no soldiers came. There was a time the governor even promised that soldiers would be deployed, one source recalled. He told our leaders that the army would be sent. But days passed, weeks passed, months passed. No soldiers, no security sweep, no forest clearance. The people say they were abandoned.
Now, imagine living every day knowing danger is close, seeing it, reporting it, begging for help, and watching authorities assure you while doing nothing. How does that feel? How long can a community live like that? Then the fear became reality. The attackers struck in a coordinated operation across several villages, including Woro and Nuku. They came in large numbers. They were heavily armed. They moved with confidence, like people who had studied the terrain, planned their routes, and waited patiently. They came shouting and shooting, a survivor recounted. People were running in all directions. Houses were set on fire. Villages burned. Men, women, and children were cut down. Families were wiped out in minutes. They killed without mercy, another resident said. We are still counting the dead. The attack lasted for hours. Hours without immediate security intervention. People hid in bushes. Some ran barefoot into the night. Others did not make it out alive. Let's pause and ask an uncomfortable question here. If warnings were given months earlier, why were these communities left to face terrorists alone?
Later, Governor AbdulRahman AbdulRazaq arrived in Kaiama alongside top service chiefs and members of his cabinet. He described the attack as a cowardly act and disclosed that at least 75 local Muslims were killed after rejecting what he called a strange and misguided extremist doctrine. He visited the emir of Kaiama, he went to Woro, he saw the destruction. At least 75 local Muslims were massacred in cold blood, the governor said. But here's where the story becomes more complex and troubling. Residents insist that the death toll is far higher than what the government announced. It is a lie, one resident said bluntly. Anybody that believes those who were killed were not up to 100 should come here and count the corpses themselves. Survivors say over 170 people were killed across the affected villages. So now we have another question. Why the conflicting figures? Is it a case of incomplete information or an attempt to downplay the scale of the tragedy? The anger in Kaiama is not just about the killings. It is about what people describe as deliberate neglect. The government failed us, a resident said. We did our part by reporting early. And this is where the issue becomes bigger than Kaiama, bigger than Kwara State.
Across Nigeria, government officials and security agencies constantly urge citizens to report suspicious movements, strange individuals, and potential threats. Radio jingles say it, posters repeat it, public speeches emphasize it. But what happens when citizens actually report and nothing is done? Another angle to this issue is trust. If people raise alarms and are ignored, will they bother reporting next time? If early warnings lead to death instead of protection, what message does that send to other communities? In Kaiama, residents say they did exactly what was expected of them. They did not take laws into their own hands. They did not attack anyone. They asked for security presence. They waited. And while they waited, terrorists stayed in the forest, planned and attacked. Governor AbdulRazaq later announced that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu approved the immediate deployment of an army battalion under a counter-offensive operation named Operation Savannah Shield. That deployment came after the massacre.
So let us ask another hard question. Why is security response in Nigeria often reactive instead of preventive? Why do soldiers arrive after blood has been spilled instead of when early warnings are raised? In countries where governance works as intended, the primary responsibility of the state is the protection of lives and property. That is the basic social contract between citizens and government. But why does it feel different in Nigeria? Is it bureaucracy? Is it poor intelligence coordination? Is it political calculation? Is it underestimation of rural communities? Or is it simply that rural lives are treated as expendable until tragedy forces attention? The attack in Kaiama has also raised serious concerns about the spread of extremist violence into north-central Nigeria, a region once considered relatively safe from Boko Haram-linked activities. This is significant. It means the threat is expanding. It means forests and ungoverned spaces are being exploited. It means early detection and rapid response are more important than ever. And yet, Kaiama shows what happens when warnings are ignored. Community members describe the governor's visit after the attack as eye service, a performance for the media rather than genuine accountability. They came after people died, one resident said bitterly. They cried on camera, but they knew this would happen. Whether that accusation is fair or not, it reflects deep mistrust and pain. And pain, when ignored, turns into anger.
Now, let's look at the atmosphere on ground after the attack. Villages are quiet. Burnt houses stand like open wounds. The smell of smoke still hangs in the air. Survivors sit together, whispering names of those who didn't return. Children ask questions adults cannot answer. Security presence has increased now. Soldiers patrol roads. Armored vehicles move through areas they never visited before. The forests are being combed, finally. But for many families, it is too late. So what lessons must Nigeria learn from Kaiama? First, early warnings must be treated as emergencies, not suggestions. When multiple reports come from the same area, it should trigger immediate action. Second, security response must prioritize prevention, not just reaction. Clearing forests and deploying troops early could save hundreds of lives. Third, government officials must be held accountable when credible intelligence is ignored. Silence and excuses only deepen public distrust. Fourth, communities must continue to speak up, even when it feels useless. Silence only helps criminals. And finally, Nigerians must keep asking questions. Why were warnings ignored? Who failed to act and why? How many lives could have been saved? Will the same mistake happen again in another community? The tragedy of Kaiama is not just about terrorists. It is about broken systems, delayed action, and the heavy cost paid by ordinary people. As Nigeria mourns, one thing is clear. Security is not just about guns and soldiers. It is about listening, truly listening, to the people who live closest to danger. Because when their voices are ignored, the consequences are written in blood.